Call the Burien City Council to order on April 1st, 2013. I'd like to know for the record that we had a special meeting at 6:30 p.m. to conduct King County Landmarks Commission interviews. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do appreciate it. They were very happy with the results.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Brian Bennett.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lucy Krakowiak. Here. Council members Jack Block Jr.
Here.
Rose Clark. Here. Bob Edgar.
Here.
Joan McGilton. Here. Gerald F. Robinson.
Here. Okay, next up we have presentation of certificates and appreciation to outgoing advisory board members. We have a little reception here. I would like to acknowledge all of them by name here. We've got certificates for all of them. So one is Shelley Brittingham on the Burien Arts Commission, who's here. From the BEDP, the Business and Economic Development Partnership, we have David Elliott. Bob Ewing. Kevin Fitz. Jim Hughes. And from the Arts Commission, we have Debbie Toma. Donna DiFiore. From the Parks and Recreation Board, we have Heidi Holmes and Jean Spawn, who I believe is here this evening. And from the Planning Commission, we have John Updegrove. And so, like I said, we're going to break for a reception. We've got some hors d'oeuvres here, I think. Really quickly, I would just like to thank all of these boards and commission members for their service to our community. Some of these names are very long-standing, upstanding members of our community that many, many people will recognize. And so it's a huge benefit to our community to have such talented people serving our community. I think we want to encourage the most talented people in our community to serve, and it would be a huge benefit to our community and continue to do so. So thank you very much for your service.
Donna just walked in.
Oh, Donna, thank you very much. Yes, we read your name with your certificate. We've got your certificate here. Thank you very much for joining us. And we will break and reconvene in a few minutes after we've all had a chance to say hello. So we'll take a break right now. Okay, thank you. So we'll get started again with the meeting. Thank you again to our advisory board members and those who came, and those who came to the reception. Appreciate it very much. Next item on our agenda is agenda confirmation. Can we get a motion to approve this?
Move approval of agenda.
Can everyone please register their votes? The agenda is approved unanimously. Next up, we have public comment. We've got a long list tonight. So everyone, please keep your comments to 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for groups. We'll keep track of the time for you here. The red light will come on when your time is up. I'll try to read 3 names in advance so everyone can assemble at the podium. First up, we have Dick West, followed by Good Space Guy, and then we have Bauer. Go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Dick West. I live at 11006 Roseburg Avenue South, here in Washington, 98168. I'm both pleased and disheartened by the city council's decision on voting awards. I'm pleased that it's not forward this time. I'm also angry at the waste of time and money that this issue has caused. The 4 council members who were advocating it had votes, the legal prerogative to make it happen, yet were unable to execute this. This pattern of failure to execute policy shows up repeatedly in Burien. Failure to enforce the Burien Municipal Code has caused housing prices to decline. Failure to follow up with the city manager on requests for information is pervasive. Failure to deliver timely requests for public records is common. Failure of the council to vote when a quorum is present because certain members choose not to attend that evening happens frequently. And then failure of the city to follow its own laws happens all the time, and the list goes on and on. At a recent council meeting on planning for business development, the members of the council were heard talking about calling it an action plan so that it wouldn't wind up on the shelf like the others. Unfortunately, talk doesn't make things happen. It's passion and conviction to see things through that makes things happen. Ultimately, life comes down to do it, delegate it, or dump it. The city and the community cannot afford to be led by people who will not stay focused and appear incapable of implementing their own directives. I'm respectfully requesting that the members of the council whose terms are up simply not run for the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Guten Abend. Es freut mich wieder hier zu sein. Ich heiße Good Space Guy und ich wohne in Boulevard Park. Economic development policy. What should be the economic development policy of Burien? As an amateur economist, it seems to me that the economic development policy of Burien should be the defense of the competitive free market. The competitive free market works for you, the consumer. The consumer directs the competitive free market, and the search for profit and wealth are the incentives that lead to employment. So as business people go about taking care of their business for their consumers and hiring people to help them take care of their consumers, employment goes up. And it is through work that we raise our living standard. And when I say work or workers, I mean the big definition, including management and the entrepreneurs. So the frontline workers, the management, the entrepreneurs, all of these people in search of long-term profit are raising the living standard by hiring people to serve the consumer. Unfortunately, government often sabotages the competitive free market, and people blame the competitive free market, thinking that it's the competitive free market that's gone wrong, where oftentimes it is government that has sabotaged it. And in the case of Burien, one of the big saboteurs of the economy in Burien is state law. For example, the minimum wage. Now, most of our citizens have not studied economics. They were not taught economics in high school, and in college, those who went on to college may have only gotten 2 courses. And so they don't really understand economics. And when I tell people that I'm an amateur economist and I've learned that the minimum wage destroys jobs and destroys companies and thus creates unemployment, those who have not studied economics but who believe in the minimum wage, they don't believe me. And since they have not studied economics, they don't really realize what it is. And so they explain to me how the economy works. And of course, they're wrong. It's sort of like the doctors of bygone era. Back in our history, doctors believed that if you bled the patient, this would help the patient. So that was an error when when doctors said when the red light comes on.
Thank you again. Next up, BAUR is the name that's written down here. Is anyone here? So, okay, well, we'll have people, whoever wants to, after the list, can comment. Next up, we have Roger DeLong, followed by Robert Howell, followed by Robbie Howell.
My name is Roger DeLarm. I live at 13254 2nd Avenue Southwest. CARES is my subject. When it came about in the very beginning, I thought this was really good animal control. And they signed a 3-year contract for $120,000. Well, then some of the truth started coming out about this was not a very good service. And then either the people quit or were fired in the first batch of employees. So there was an audit, and all of the things on there that were supposed to be implemented. Well, in the original contract, there was no provision for an increase in pay. In the audit, there was no mention of them getting any more money. Well, it seems that the city is having things of cost overruns. Big's one on First Avenue South, Ambon 128, all cost overruns. And now this is going to be another cost overrun. I just wish I had a business where I could have a service contract with the city of Burien, and at the end of the year, I could say, I need more money. Now, that is just not right. Thank you.
Mr. Howell?
Good evening. My name is Robert Howell. I live at 15240 20th Avenue Southwest. And I'm here to speak to one on the 2013 Comprehensive Plan Update Request. The Lake Burien Neighborhood Request. This request is for a comprehensive plan land use map review to change the land use map to show the neighborhood as low-density land use, that is 4 or less units per acre, to protect the critical areas of the water. This type of request from citizens is allowed under the Growth Management Act, and the comprehensive plan is open for review. As historical information, land use density is currently 3.2 units per acre, which meets the Burien Comprehensive Plan definition of low density, that is 4 or less units per acre. The area around the lake has critical areas as shown on the city's critical areas map. Since 1996, the residents of the neighborhood have always requested low-density land use for the area to protect water quality. In 2010, 167 signatures of the neighborhood residents were submitted to the city in support of changing the land use map. These are on file with the city and are the majority of the residents in the neighborhood. The city's stormwater facilities are not adequate to support low-density land use, much less moderate density. This is contrary to what the city claimed about their stormwater facilities in 2010. This is a drainage map showing of Lake Burien, showing the pipes that went into the lake, and these pipes have shown to have inadequate capacity to carry the water during periods of storms. Here are 11 drain pipes that empty storm water into the lake. And the amount and rate of water flowing into the drain pipes is greater than can be emptied into the lake. Thus causes the water to back up into the streets and private property. The oil separators are missing from a number of the storm drains. And increased pollution occurs to the lake, the surrounding properties, and causes water quality problems for all living things using the water in Lake Burien, Miller Creek, and Puget Sound. Burien does not have adequate stormwater facilities to manage stormwater. Here is a private property flooding in 20th Avenue Southwest. The Water was running on 20th Avenue Southwest. There are no storm drains on the east side of the street. The water runs down the lowest point along the street, which happens to be my driveway. And it come down with such force that it actually eroded a section of the driveway and filled up my landing area down there with water faster than the drains could carry it away.
Mr. Howe, can I ask you to wrap up? Your 3 minutes is up.
And this is the overview of the house. And Robbie will take over.
Private property flooding in 152nd Southwest. This is Stan Koski's driveway, and this is how the water comes off of 152nd down to his house, flooding it. And this floods, the lake also floods up onto his property, and this has happened several times. Private property flooding 156 Southwest. This is Linda Queen's house. And that tree is normally dry, it's a nice lawn. And when we have the storm water coming down, flooding all of our properties all around the lake, this is what happens. And the ducks are swimming around the tree. Street flooding on 52nd Southwest and 11th Avenue Southwest. I took this picture early the morning that the rainstorm happened. This is now late in the afternoon, just before the sun is going down. And of course, some of the water was still there the second day. And more pictures of that. Street flooding 152nd Southwest and 14th Avenue Southwest. More flooding here. Toxic algae. This is taken in my yard after we had the flooding. The years that we've had the flooding and the debris were broken, and no fish would like to swim in that. No duck will even be around it. They're not there when we have this kind of thing going on. There's more of it here. This is a log that goes across my front yard. Toxic algae bloom. Toxic algae bloomed for 10 months in the late 2010 and 2011. This was due to stormwater management problems. It caused health, safety, and water quality problems for all living things that lived in and used Lake Burien, Miller Creek, and Puget Sound. Aerial view. The green lakes up there, that's Lake Burien, and the one down below on the left. On the right, it's an uncontaminated lake at the same time of a lake on Vashon Island. Aerial view of water quality photos taken 4/21/11. Lake Burien contaminated with toxic algae 2010 through 2011, 10 months. We endured this. As a comparison of water quality, a photo of a lake, what? A photo of a lake and contaminated on Vashon Island taken on the same day. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. You're going to be hired to take over my job here. Next up, we have Linda Plain, followed by Justine Edgar, followed by Debbie Wagner.
Hi, I'm Linda Plain. I live at 1600 Southwest, 156th Street in Burien. And we're talking about the citizens' salmon investigation on the salmon CSI report. And here we go. This is on 2012. In 2012, of the 432 coho that returned to Miller Creek, 88% died of pre-spawn mortality caused by chemicals and pollutants in the stormwater. Pollution in the lake water is affecting salmon recovery in Miller Creek. Lake Burion's water quality is degrading and this critical area is not being properly protected. Okay, low density criteria. This is on the environmental impact statement, chapter 5, and current comprehensive plan, chapter 2 and chapter 5. Also, the best available science in the 2011 update, the mitigation sequence is discussed, and in the Burien Drainage Master Plan 2012. The Burien Comprehensive Land Use Map is inconsistent with these documents and does not support the best available science for managing the land use of Lake Burien neighborhood. As I understand, the language, the written language, is the superior, the governing one versus the map. And so we need to be consistent with the verbiage and make the map agree with our verbiage. All right, and thank you for consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Edgar.
My name's Justine Edgar, and I live at 111 Southwest 152nd Street, Burien, Washington. And the photos that were taken are just a small sample of the many neighbors that experienced flooding, not only from the street side as well as from the lake side, because the stormwater system is insufficient for low density, as well as it will be completely insufficient for moderate density. The simplest solution to this, of course, is the first step in mitigation, and that is to avoid the impact if possible, okay? And this land is now being used at low density, and the stormwater facilities aren't sufficient. And if it goes up to moderate density, the problem will only intensify. The new information since 2010, the city presented the last time you saw this, that they had more than adequate facilities to take care of this area, which clearly you can see from the photos. And the many citizens that have reported this, they simply do not. The 2012 Surface Water Management Master Plan work group projected no money for a minimum of 15 years to remedy the Burien stormwater retrofit that needs to happen so that there's some regulation at the speed at which this water enters the lake. There is no adequate funding for all of the projects that need to be done in the city, and that's the other thing that the Surface Water Management Plan states. There is no mandated LID, low impact development, for the Lake Burien neighborhood or even for all of Burien, which is another mitigation that could occur, and it's expensive, but it doesn't exist. And the most cost-effective solution and the best available science solution for this problem is to keep the land use in the Lake Burien neighborhood at low density. It can be kept at that, and it is built out at a lower density than even the marine shorelines. And Michael Noakes and I spoke about this, and he said, oh, you are at a much lower density than we are in the marine shorelines. So just know that currently that land, because of the way the citizens have used it, is at a lower density than even the marine shorelines. And the marine shorelines are certainly suffering from significant stormwater management problems too. This is a discussion in Chapter 5 of the current Burien Comprehensive Plan and the 2011 Best Available Science document. That is the first in the sequence of mitigation that you keep land density low if it's still possible, and it is possible in this neighborhood. Also, new information since 2010. A low-density land use designation does not impact the growth management's numbers that are required by the city, which was an argument that the staff put forward. They have more than enough excess units. The city has hundreds of excess available housing units to meet the requirements of the Puget Sound Regional Council.
Ms. Edgar, can I ask you to wrap up?
Okay. The improvement of water quality in the city, Miller Creek, and Puget Sound benefits the public and animals and the environment. And for that reason, we are requesting that you even allow this to get to the docket, because it has been blocked from getting to the docket. We believe that there needs to be, okay, a look at the land use in this neighborhood, and there needs to be a look at the the language between the documents, best available science, and what the map says. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Debbie Wagner.
Hi, I'm Debbie Wagner. I live at 1520 Southwest 158th Street. I'm not right on the lake, but this issue has been something that our family has been concerned about for a while. We do see ducks on the lake, and we do know that there are wildlife that depend on the lake. And this toxic pollution situation that keeps infiltrating the waters, causing the algae blooms and other issues with stormwater is something that should be tackled by the city. And the city, I think, has a responsibility. If the stormwater management plan isn't adequate to take care of this problem, then they need to upgrade it or do whatever is necessary to protect this aquatic resource. I do know that there are people that are pushing for access to the lake and, all kinds of things that should be available because these are waters that don't belong to the people that live there and so forth. Well, these are waters of the United States, and there are rules and regulations that protect them. And water quality is in the jurisdiction of the city. The city has a responsibility to maintain that. And if they're not performing adequately and not providing adequate stormwater drainage facilities for these events, these flooding events, it's their responsibility to take it up and repair it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Quentin Thompson. He's the last person signed up, so anyone else who would like to comment this evening, please go ahead and assemble at the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Good evening, council members, and good evening, audience. First of all, I'd like to say for all the people that got an award this evening, that was very nice to hear. I've been out and about in Burien, Normandy Park, and Boulevard Park, and I've seen a lot of things that the city has done and these planners have done, and I want to commend them first of all for doing a great job not only for the area to look nice but also for the city. And the other thing is I want to talk a minute about CARES. The reason why CARES was implemented for the animals is because back in 2011, when I did my research, animal control was dispatched through the King County Sheriff's Office. This way, when CARES is taking over the animal control portion for the calls and the dispatching, it all goes to a centralized number, and it doesn't tie up our 911 operators as well as the non-emergency operators. That's why it is implemented into CARES, and it will be more cost-effective to go with CARES than regular animal control. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further commenters, we'll move on with the agenda. The next item is correspondence for the record. There are a handful of emails that are available for viewing in the packet and online. Next up is the consent agenda. Can we get a motion to approve?
I move the consent agenda.
All those, please register your votes. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Next up is our business agenda. First item is a motion to approve appointment to the King County Landmarks Commission. Can we get that motion, please?
I move to appoint Cindy Grove to serve as Burien special member on the King County Landmarks Commission to a full term beginning on April 1st, 2013 and ending on March 31st, 2016.
Okay, any comments or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, can we go ahead and list our votes? motion is approved unanimously. Next up, we have a motion to approve Burien City Council appointments for 2013.
I move to approve the 2013 council appointments as listed in attachment 2.
Okay, any discussion of the appointments? Seeing none, can we go ahead and register our votes? The motion is approved unanimously. Next up, we have item C, which is a review of revisions to the city council policies and procedures. Do you have staff presentation?
Yes. Mayor Bennett, council member, good evening. Yang Nguyen, your management analyst, city manager department. The purpose of this agenda bill on council package, page 65, is for me to bring back to you again the matrix that contained the revision request to the city council meeting policy and procedure. You should have 3 attachments in the package. The first attachment is the policy and procedure with track changes on page 67. The second is a clean document, which is what the final product will look like, and it's on page 145. The third attachment is the matrix that documents all the revision on page 183. On page 183 and page 184, you will find 2 revision requests that still need council's consensus. I went ahead and included them in the final document. Council has the option to 1. Approve the revision and direct staff to put the revised policy and procedure, which is now called council meeting guideline, on the consent agenda at the April 15 meeting, or 2. Add additional revision requests to the matrix and direct staff to bring back at the next meeting. This concludes the introduction of the agenda bill. Staff is ready to take on council comments and questions.
Okay, any questions or comments? Councilmember Edgar.
Thank you. One of the reasons I requested that this agenda item be moved to this meeting last the 18th was that I said that I had an addition that I'd like to propose that be added to the policies, the guidelines. And I did send a copy to Don. And if you could put that up, I'd like to run through it. Essentially, it would be taking section number 22.
John received that this morning. We didn't include it in the packet, so the council members haven't seen it.
Okay.
We just received that this morning.
This morning, too.
I can read it. So what I'm proposing is that we add a section 22 and we insert it into the guidelines and replace the current section 22. And the topic would be integration of new council members. I have proposed 3 subsections. The first subsection 22.1 states, within the first month after new council members are sworn in, the whole council will meet in a professionally facilitated full-day workshop with a shared goal of intentionally moving the group to a common core skill set for working together. Section 22.2 states, within the 6 months after new council members are sworn in, the whole council will meet the second time in a professionally facilitated full-day workshop to continue honing skills of developing into a high-performing team. Section 22.3 states, the whole council will conduct a formal review and discussion of the council meeting guidelines we're working on. And 22.4 is some examples of things that might be included during those workshops. They would be topics that develop the skill proficiencies needed by a high-performing team and might include things like learning styles inventory, communication skills, listening skills, goal-setting strategies, mentorship skills, consensus building, budget training, team building exercises, crisis management, leadership styles, stewardship and leadership philosophies, time management strategies, and identification of key documents that is real critical that a new council member would know about. That's the section that I'm proposing to be inserted. The existing sections 22 and 23 that would follow would be renumbered to 23 and 24, and there would be appropriate adjustments made to the table of contents.
Deputy Mayor Kokovic.
So for clarification, I believe I saw that in an email that I think all council members got sent today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Was that the same thing that Bob just read?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So
Leon forwarded that this morning.
okay. Thank you for sending that to us, and I just quickly read it, and I was thinking that one of the edits I would support including that in the guidelines, and I would just leave out the word full day and have a facilitated workshop when the council members are sworn in, and then 6 months later, but taking out the full day, giving us more flexibility on that workshop. Thank you.
Councilmember Ross.
I haven't seen it. I never got a chance to check. I never got to the city's email today. I like the idea of a orientation process for new council members. I'm not sure if the, well, without seeing it, I'm not sure about the details, but I'm not sure that the meeting guidelines is necessarily an appropriate place for that. I was wondering if staff has any ideas on whether there's a better spot for that in the city's policies or procedures. And so I'd like at least a week to look at this and think about it before I would take any action on it. But I'm wondering if we could move ahead with adoption of the guidelines and then save this to work on later. We're not gonna need new council member orientation, hopefully, before next January.
Councilmember Henry.
Thank you. A couple things. The insertion of this does fit with the guidelines. It happens to follow section 21, which deals with procedures for filling council vacancies. So the next logical thing that would be done in the guidelines would be, how do we integrate any new council member into the team? And so I believe it needs to be there, and that's why I brought it up, and I think it should be inserted while the guidelines are still open instead of trying to retrofit it later.
Councilmember McGill.
I agree with Councilmember Robeson. I don't see that this is time sensitive. I would think that these policies could be amended during thank you. I don't see the need for time sensitive on this, and I would think that these policies can be amended as necessary while we've had a chance to consider this. Facilitated workshops, I imagine, are relatively expensive. To do them as often as suggested by these changes, and I've not seen them before tonight, might be a budget impact to the city. So what I'd like to propose is pretty much what Councilmember Robeson proposed, is we move this to the consent agenda. My reasoning is, I think we've discussed this numerous times since October. If we are a council that looks to cost effectiveness and efficiency, I don't think it's been well represented with the council policies. They are important, but I think we're spending way too much time without making a decision. So I suggest that we move this to the consent agenda.
Councilmember Block.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'd like to take a closer look at this too. I went through my email, I didn't receive it. Just a heads up. But the logic that Councilmember Edgar presents to have this included makes sense. What we may want to do is just put it on the agenda for next meeting and then debate whether or not we want to add the language to it and then vote it up. It just take us a few extra minutes, and I do agree we have to move forward with this. But with the amount of time that we've spent on it, you know, let's do it right. So anyway, that's my suggestion.
Okay, Councilmember Edgar.
Thank you. Time sensitive is relative. The wording is specifically states that once a council member is sworn in, which doesn't necessarily follow an election cycle, it may follow an appointment cycle. So the idea of attempting to amend something like this into the guidelines typically is $1 late and a day short. And usually the amendment wants to be done or should be done and it's determined that the city should do it after an event already occurred. And the other thing I'd like to notice is that there have been a number of comments by council members during council meetings about this functional nature of the city council. So based on the retreat that we had a few weeks ago, I drafted this for inclusion because I thought it was timely. I thought it was necessary. And it's being done while the guidelines are still open. And so up to this point, I have not seen anyone offer any concrete solution to deal with the mitigation of dysfunction or even to provide guidelines for intentionally working to make the council a collaborative, functioning team. So my sense is now is the time that it should be added to the guidelines. Thank you.
Mr. Martin, did you have a comment?
Not so much on this part of the discussion, but only to point out there are two items. I'm going to stop this part of the conversation. There are two items in your in the policies as they're presented to you today on page 183 that are unresolved. There's no consensus around them. So in addition to whatever you decide to do with Councilmember Edgar's proposal, we have those two items that are yet to be resolved.
Yep, thank you for bringing those to our attention. And so I think we've had a lot of discussion about this particular item, so I'd like to wrap that up. Personally, I think I agree that there are potential budget implications. The public has not been notified of this proposal yet, so I think that needs to happen before we would consider it, so we can receive comments on it. So my proposal would be somewhat in line with Councilmember Robson and Gilton, is that we discuss placing this on future agenda when we have an agenda consideration, and so everyone has a full chance to consider it. With that, we've got a couple of other comments, then we'll get to the points that Mr. Morton brought up. Councilmember Robson.
Okay, I just wanted to comment. I wasn't suggesting that I thought it was a bad idea or anything. I think it's a good idea to have some council member orientation. I certainly could have used a little more of that, I think, though I did like the reception I got and the information I got from city staff when I joined the council. We've been going over these council guidelines for a long time now.
5 months.
We've got two items that seem to be fairly simple items to resolve, and we can adopt these guidelines. But this is coming new for the first time tonight, and so it's going to need more thought. And my thought is, rather than hold up the entire guideline process for another month or whatever, let's adopt this and then take a look at the orientation language, and we can add that back in later. And I like the idea of putting it on a consent agenda if everybody's in agreement with that. As far as the timeliness goes, unless someone on the council is holding something back, I don't think we're going to have any new council people until next January. As far as I know, nobody is planning adopted and then hold that change for for due consideration so it can be adopted in a reasoned way.
Deputy Mayor Kukovic.
Thank you. So just a historical perspective, with the length of time that it's taking us to go through this, we started studying this in the fall and it went through the winter, and I think there was a sense of waiting for all council members to be at the dais to complete the discussion. So I appreciate that we took into consideration having the full council to finalize this document. I would like to see section 22 added, and I'm comfortable with it being put on the business agenda for our next meeting, and I would support numbers 1 and numbers 2, and then adding section 22. Thank you.
Okay, so just to finish this one, and then we can move on to the other items. So looks like we've got Councilmember Edgar, Deputy Mayor Kukovic, and Councilmember Block would like to consider the next meeting. I haven't seen any other further support for that. So at this point, seeing no further support for that.
Well, without seeing it, I can't even say whether I want to consider it.
Yeah, no, totally understand. So yes, I would say that we're then with the proposal to bring it up for agenda consideration when we consider the agenda the next time, and we can discuss that option then. With that, let's move on to the other 2 open items that Mr. Martin mentioned. If you could flag those, bring us to
So,
the page.
Mr. Mayor, clarification,
Sure.
is going to go on the consent agenda or the regular agenda for the next meeting?
Well, I think first we need to discuss the 2 open items and see if we can reach consensus on those, and then we'll discuss whether we put it on the consent agenda. So I appreciate that.
Okay,
proposal. I appreciate it. So with that, can staff point us to those 2 open items?
Sure. Page 183. Yeah, 183 and 184. Item 1 on page 183 is number 1. So originally, this was a section that had to do with the this is the anti-harassment policy that was originally intended to be in the, or that was originally in the council policies. The staff suggested taking it out and putting it into other policies that exist in a separate document in the Human Resource Department. If I recall correctly, there was consensus around that, that Councilmember Edgar asked that be reconsidered, then placed back into the council policies and procedures, 1, and 2, that rather than have the city manager involved in this particular type of harassment, that it would be the city attorney rather than the city manager. Is that correct? Okay. And that's the gist of it.
So just so I understand, what the prior staff recommendation was to have
this policy exist, but that policy would exist not in the council policy and procedures, but in a separate document that is kept with Human Resources. In that document, the city manager, not the city attorney, was involved in this particular type of harassment.
And just so I understand the substance of the subject matter we're talking about here, so this is a harassment claim would be brought, the staff recommendation was it would be brought to the city manager. The Councilmember Edgar's recommendation was that it be brought to the city attorney. And it was the staff recommendation limited to harassment by certain individuals?
Yes, particularly, specifically if the incident involved the mayor, then the city attorney rather than the city manager would be involved in settling that dispute. And understand historically, we didn't have a recommendation. What it was is that historically it's been always managed by the city manager. And perhaps Councilmember Edgar can clarify what was intended here.
Yes, thank you. The intent was when I took a look at the policies as written in the city document, there was no protection for advisory board members, elected members, members, elected people, to have the same rights as the city. So the city employees were really the focus of the document that was in the city policy. What I did was I included protection for all members that are appointed or elected, whether they be a commissioner, on an advisory board, on the council, and made sure that there was equal protection and an unbiased person who oversaw or had the ability to oversee issues should they arise. So the intent was to be more comprehensive, to make sure every person, whether they were a city employee, a city elected person, or appointed person, had the same protection.
Thank you for that clarification. Deputy Mayor Koga.
Thank you. So just for some information, item number 1 and item number 2 are incorporated in the final draft with no markups, and item number 1 can be found on page 161, and item number 2 can be found on 166. I was part of the committee, the council committee that created the anti-harassment policy for the council, and so I believe that it would serve us well if it's in the council guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, so as far as this being taken out of the city attorney versus this city manager, just so I understand, I guess I'm really concerned about the city manager getting cut out of the loop here for certain harassment claims versus others. Is there any explanation of why this would be taken to the city attorney versus the city manager? Councilor.
The idea was that should there be anything, the current policies state that the city mayor, the mayor plays the role of an arbitrator if things occur with staff. But what was unclear is if there were issues among appointed or elected personnel, it put the mayor in a difficult position, and so rather being the arbitrator as it was originally stated, that would be moved out to a third party, and at the point it would be the city attorney.
So we've got, this has been flagged as an open-ish item. Do we have support or opposition to the request to have these items taken to the city attorney rather than the city manager and in the city council policies versus the HR policies? I don't see any further comments on that. So if not, I guess we'll leave it as is, as the council.
Well, I'm okay with the proposed changes.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like we have support for the proposed changes. The next item?
Yes, the item number 2 on the same page, this had to do with whether the city manager's evaluation process, it tightened up the timelines in which the council should be evaluating the city manager. I think this was intended to ensure that if outgoing council members, if there were outgoing council members, that they participated in a timely fashion in making sure that they participated in the city manager's evaluation. And that sounds, that would be great, frankly. It intended to say that.
Okay, I don't see any comments on that then, so Councilman Lawson.
Yeah, I support the change. I'm glad there's no system in there to punish council members who don't get their evaluations in time.
Have it. Okay, so seeing no further comments then, I'll take that as support to leave it as is, or any disagreement with that. I see head nods. Further change, yes. And so if those are the 2 open items, then I think we've got consensus to move forward then. Do we have agreement to put this on the consent agenda for the next meeting? Let's see. No. Yes. Business. Okay, so 1 yes for the consent agenda, 2 yes.
Just to give us time to look at the section 20, the email that we got today that someone was going to get.
Yeah, so far we've got,
Well, I'm thinking, let's put it on the consent agenda, with the proposed change, if you don't like it, we can take it off the consent agenda.
yes, so I agreed that we should put this on the consent agenda, and then if we want to.
Is that on the consent agenda with Councilmember Edgar's chapter 22
No.
additions?
No, that would be,
Well,
chapter 22 would not be.
without, that's what I'm
Okay. So we will hold, we will hold the 20, well, I was thinking we could put it on with the 20, proposal 22, and then take it off the consent agenda if anybody objects to it, right?
Okay, so I didn't fully appreciate that. So we're saying there's agreement to put it on the consent agenda with Councilmember Akers' additional request for the orientation facilitated.
And if we want to discuss it, we can put it on the business agenda.
Okay, so, and there's agreement for that? And, okay, so there's majority agreement for that.
Thank you.
So with that, Councilmember Block, did you have an additional comment?
No, that dealt with it, thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to the next business agenda item, which is a motion to adopt ordinance number 573, amended work Burien zoning, and adopting 2012 comprehensive plan text and map amendments.
So, Mayor, you mentioned it's a motion, but I see it on our agenda as discussion and motion, and then on our blue sheet, I see that we have it as a motion on April 15th. So, I would fall back to our standard of discussing tonight and then making a motion on the 15th, but looking for clarification.
Okay. Do we have any clarification from staff on what the intent was?
Yeah, our intent was, since we have 2 items remaining, our intent was to take action this evening.
Okay. So, can we go ahead then, let's get the staff presentation and we'll discuss the motion.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Bennett, members of the City Council, David Johansson, Senior Planner with the City of Burien. So again, the agenda item before you tonight is proposed ordinance 573, and it's regarding the proposed North Burien zoning map amendments, comprehensive plan land use designation amendments, and the text amendments. So just to kind of recap the last meeting, which is basically where we left off, on March 18th, the City Council reached consensus on all but just 2 items. And those 2 items I've outlined in the agenda bill. The first outstanding item was to verify the proposed zoning and land use designations along the First Avenue corridor. It was the map reference number C-1. And the question was, yes? The page number, I'm just working off the agenda bill, which is page number 195. So the reference number, it was a question by Councilmember Kukoviak on whether there was a parcel line there, and I did confirm, actually it is one solid parcel. The city actually owns it. And so what we're doing is we are just putting the RS 7200 designation for the majority of the parcel. So that was confirmed. The last item is regarding policy PI 1.5. And on attachment 2 in your packet, page number 255, is we've taken an excerpt from the council comment matrix and more or less extracted it out just to focus on this one particular item. We put staff recommendations on the far right, similar to what we've done before, and we've also put in the actual body, we've actually put the staff recommended language, the staff and planning commission recommended language, along with Councilmember, I think it was Councilmember Robinson's recommended language, which was received council consensus at a previous meeting. So this is the outstanding item. There was some discussion, and I believe this was the only item that we're left to resolve.
Councilmember Ross.
Okay, well, I'll start with the zoning. I'm a little confused by the agenda bill we got as to exactly what we were looking at. I wanted to make sure when we were talking before, the areas on the proposed map, the areas A1, A2, and A3, we're leaving it in the existing zoning, right?
Yes, correct, CC2.
Okay. Now for the policy 1.5, I took another more thorough look at the whole changes because you're proposing to completely revamp the way that the things in there. Most of it's a matter of shifting things around, but what bothers me is that the focus of it shifts away from consistency with current plans and into some kind of vague public need and public benefit. And what I was thinking originally when I wanted to go to the no detriment language rather than the show up benefit language was that it creates what appears to me to be kind of an impossible standard for anyone seeking a change. Because based on my past experience and observation, if you've got something that, not to impugn city staff, but if you've got something that city staff likes, it seems like there's always a way to find a public benefit to it. And if you've got something that city staff doesn't like, it's impossible to find a public benefit to it. And my concern is just pushing this more into the realm of, okay, we get what staff promotes and what the council adopts, and that's what we're stuck with. Nobody that comes along with another idea is going to have much of a chance of getting anything changed. And as far as the effect of this policy implementation policy, plan implementation policy goes, this affects comprehensive use, all comprehensive plan changes, which unless you're doing something that's already allowed in the present zoning or the present comp plan amendment, you're going to need to have to do any kind of project. And so I'm uncomfortable with setting that kind of standard that says, okay, if I want to make a change in the comp plan to do some project in the city, I have to prove somehow that I'm going to have a benefit for the entire city rather than just simply being a benefit for this property. And not that I think it's bad that it should benefit the entire city, but like I said, it becomes this kind of thing where favored projects have no problem finding a benefit, disfavored projects find it impossible to find a benefit. And I just prefer the easier standard of, okay, you're not going to cause any harm with your project.
Councilmember Miguel.
We've had this discussion before. This is probably the third or fourth time I've heard you say this. Give me exactly in the matrix what you want changed.
Yeah, so in the matrix on page 255, the center column, proposed language, I listed it under city council proposed language. It's about midway or at the top third.
So could I help on this one? I've talked this one over with David a lot and kind of wrestled with some of the same issues that Councilmember Robinson has mentioned here. A project doesn't go forward or stall because of this requirement. Not impugning staff's intentions, we couldn't find a project that had not gone forward because of this, or the alternative had gone forward. When we're looking at projects or rezones or whatever it happens to be, we try to look at a number of things, including this, which taken together in the aggregate suggest that they will be good or bad or somehow in between for the community or for the project itself. Staff's position on this is that, you know, it's truly a council call. It's not a hill to die on. It largely is intended to promote the idea that whenever we do anything in the city, that we improve the city when we do it. Nothing beyond that. It wasn't intended to stop anything, nor add weight to a project that staff liked.
What I'm asking for is in paragraph C under City Council proposed language, the proposed amendment will not result in a net loss to the community. Is that what you've been asking for?
Right.
Yes.
Then why can't we approve it?
Well, I thought we had consensus on that at one point, and then at the last time it came up, the consensus flipped around.
Well, I think it
is
was
the
actually
language here what's in the comp plan?
Okay, so what's,
We're making this too difficult. I'm trying to
So,
get-
so here's the language. The language is the proposed amendment will not result in a net loss to the community.
Right.
That's the language that Councilmember Robinson is suggesting.
Yes, and
Right.
so we agree or disagree with the language that's set forth here.
That's correct. And what I'm telling you is staff doesn't have real strong feelings about this. So in the
So
spirit
can we
of,
reach consensus around this language? And
well, you should ask your colleagues that question.
Well, so, and to be fair, I think it was my fault. I'm the one that raised this as an issue, so put the blame on me, please.
I will, thank you.
But after reviewing this again and discussing with staff, I can live with Councilmember Robinson's proposal. So I'm happy to vote in favor of the proposed language from Councilmember Robinson if there is consensus on it.
It is.
Okay, I see consensus. Councilmember Edgar,
That-
did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have a comment. It'll be interesting though to see that in action when it actually gets tested.
Yes, that's something I was trying to get my arms around. Frankly, it's a complicated, important issue, but given my discussions so far with council and staff, I can live with this language.
Plus, it's also written as the double negative.
It is. So can I ask that a motion be made so that we can vote on this tonight?
So now the final issue we need to deal with then is how we handle moving forward on this.
I may be able to help. So the ordinance before you does include, excuse me, does include the proposed language by Councilmember Robinson. So the ordinance is ready to go as it currently sits.
Okay, so we have support to make a motion and approve it tonight. Any further discussion of that idea? Okay, can we go ahead and get the motion, please?
So the motion is, I move to adopt ordinance 573, amending North Burien zoning and adopting 2012 comprehensive plan text and map amendments.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion of the motion? Councilmember Edgar, did you have discussion or are we voting?
Discussion.
Okay, please, go ahead.
After going through this and working on the comp plan for a while, I still have some concerns. And basically, contrary to the Growth Management Act, I believe that the comp plan still continues to promote internal inconsistencies, especially between policies in Chapter 2 and the EIS in the Chapter 5. And for that reason, I will be voting no on this.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, can we go ahead and register our votes? Motion is approved 5-2. Mayor Krakowiak and Councilmember Edgar voting no.
We are going to have this coming up again pretty soon, aren't we?
Next item on your agenda.
And this is the 2012 comp plan that should have been voted on and approved in December.
Correct.
So here it is, April 1st, and we are voting on a 2012 comp plan amendment.
But the good news is that we are on time in bringing the 2013 comp plan docket to you this evening.
That makes me feel a little bit encouraged.
So, and just to clarify the process we've been under, so we decided to have an extra public hearing because of the zoning changes for North Highline, and so that happened in January. We've discussed this. Frankly, I think it's a very complicated issue. I appreciate staff's work on getting as much public comment as possible. I think it was very important that we receive that and consider it. And so I think the extra time in this case was worthwhile because these are potentially significant changes to the North Burien, which has not been zoned under the city yet. So I appreciate all the work and consideration that has gone into that. With that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is...
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Real quickly, before we go on to the next item, I'd just like to mention for the record that net benefit language that we're changing to the net loss language did come from a provision in the zoning code that sets forth the criteria for comp plan amendments. So the next go around when we amend the zoning code, we'll change that language to be consistent with what you approved tonight.
Okay, thank you. So next item is item E on the business agenda, discussion and motion to adopt resolution number 342, establishing the 2013 comprehensive plan amendment docket. Do we have a staff presentation?
Yes, very brief. So yes, we have now started the process for the docket for 2013, which we will be looking at possible amendments to the comprehensive plan. The resolution before you, number 342, will establish this year's docket. Action is requested this evening. However, there is a limitation. You just must take action prior to May 1st. So you either need to take action this evening or your April 15th meeting. So attached to the agenda bill on page 263, attachment 2, you'll find a memo from staff to the Planning Commission that outlines the process. And I'm just going to briefly go through that and summarize what's contained in that memo. What I always like to do this time of year is what is the docket? What is it for? Basically, the docket is a list of items that are work program items, more or less, for the comprehensive plan. This particular docket, since we are in the cycle where we're looking at our comprehensive plan to make sure it complies with the Growth Management Act, the regional planning document, which is Vision 2040, and the countywide planning policies, we are looking at our comprehensive plan in that manner to make sure we are consistent. So the docket has a number of items. So what we've done is we've gone through both the Growth Management Act to give us checklists to help us out and the regional planning documents to see where our plan may be deficient. So what you're going to see on the docket is you're going to see a number of what I'm calling required items, or I'm ranking them high, and I'll get to that later. There's some medium, not necessarily required, but good ideas, and then low priority. In addition, on the docket, I've included items with the letter C. We've more or less completed a number of these items. So this docket should look very, very familiar to you. You've seen it the last couple of years. The only one new item that I would like to mention is the rezone comprehensive plan land use designation for the Navos property, formerly Ruth Dyke. So you will see that on the docket listed as new. That's the slot that basically the group health item had in previous years.
It's item 26 on this page.
Yes.
The only new item.
Yes, thank you. So the process to this point is we do a notice in late December to letting people know it is the time to request potential amendments. That notice period ends on March 1st, which is the deadline. We receive one valid application, which is the Navos request. It's been included in your packet as an attachment. And then on March 13th, the Planning Commission conducted a public meeting to receive comment on the docket, which they did. And there was a number of comments. At that meeting, they decided to think about some things and come back on March 27th, where they did enter in a recommendation to the City Council, which is what you see before you in resolutions number 342. So I've mentioned the high priority items. Again, those are kind of the mandatory required items, and the Navos rezone, and then we've completed 5 items. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions and help you with your deliberation.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. Thank you, Mayor Cody. Or did you have a comment?
I'm gonna wait. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So any discussion or comments on the docket? item before us. Councilmember Gill.
This is simply, as the motion states, move approval of resolution number 342, establishing the docket. That's all we do tonight, is just establish the docket, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The docket is not, you're not making decisions. You're just looking at items. Should we look at the criteria? Should we look at the certain aspects of one particular issue? You're not deciding we're going to rezone or we're going to make some decision tonight. There's no decision being made tonight. We're just establishing the items to get further analysis and basically a work program for the Planning Commission.
This is the Supreme Court agreeing which cases it's going to take to consider.
So it's very simple on our part. If we don't pass this tonight, then you have no authority to move forward, right?
More or less, yes.
Okay, just looking for clarification this evening.
And the Planning Commission approved what we have in front of us as a docket.
Yes, there was a healthy discussion, I would say, at the Planning Commission. Oh, so there was one, the vote to approve this was 5 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstention. Excuse me.
Thank you for that information. Councilmember Robson.
We heard a bunch tonight about the designation around Lake Burien, and I've been hearing that, it seems like every meeting since I've been on the council. So why is that not on the docket?
Yes, we did not get an actual application. Staff did not get an application for that. So therefore, it was not a valid request. Now, the Planning Commission or the City Council, if there is a request made from a citizen, you may add items to the docket. And this was the challenge, or this was the discussion that took a lot of the time at the Planning Commission. There was a request from a citizen or a group to put the lake issue on the docket.
Now, is there a fee required for a citizen to request a change?
There is no fee if the council or the Planning Commission places it on the docket. If a person applies, for example, Navos, they paid their application fee for the rezone and the map designation change, the request.
But if we as a council decide to add it ourselves, then there's no fee to the citizen.
That's correct.
Request it.
That's correct.
Deputy Mayor Kukovic.
Thank you. I want to thank my fellow council members for their questions of clarification. I would like to add an item to the docket, and so I'm going to make a motion. So I move to add to the docket that the Burien Comprehensive Land Use Map be amended to show the Lake Burien neighborhood as low-density residential, as it meets the criteria for this change. And that is from page 280. And there is supporting documentation, including the significance for revisiting this request on page 278 to 280. So I'm looking for a second.
Second.
And just want to understand, this is a motion to add this item to the docket? Is that right?
That's correct. So we would have, instead of 28 items on the docket, this would be the 29th item on the docket. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the motion to add this item to the docket and a second in discussion of that motion. Councilmember Robson.
Okay, so this adds it to the docket for a public hearing then, if this is approved.
Again, the docket is just a list of items to analyze further. There's no decision on whether the change is going to be made.
It's more than that. It's more than the public hearing. The staff is sent off to analyze the request and incorporate it into the deliberations of that will later be brought to the Planning Commission and to you.
We would get a complete presentation similar to what Navos has produced for its application.
Well, we would fold it into the other amendments, and certainly there would be substantial analysis given, of this particular issue.
Okay, an opportunity for a public hearing on it.
There's always a public hearing when any changes to the comprehensive plan.
And am I correct, David? Was there a discussion between this and Navos, in that Navos was the first time that proposal had been brought to the Planning Commission, and this was considered to be the same proposal that was brought within 3 years?
This is very similar proposal that we've seen in the past, and Novos is a new application for a change, correct?
So the policy that council adopted.
Yes. If I may, there's actually criteria for the council, and see that this might come up. These are the criteria for when the council, to help you make decisions on how to docket, and this was just recently amended. And so I think the troubling, or the staff had trouble with the last item at the bottom where the council has not considered it in the last 3 years. And so this was a lot of the healthy discussion with the planning commission on why or it was not included. Because there was a similar discussion at the planning commission. Ultimately, the commission decided not to include it just because of recency or having dealt with.
Dave, just to be crystal clear here, a proposal was brought last year and the year before that was at least similar to this, and that was part of the criteria in this policy, not to consider it within the 3-year timeline because nothing substantial has changed.
Yes, that's correct. There is the 3-year criteria, but there is an out card here that the council can, there is criteria that the council, if they establish there is a change in circumstances, and I think that's the presentation that you saw this evening, is the council has to determine whether there's been a change in circumstances to consider it sooner than 3 years.
So it was staff's presentation or opinion to the planning commission that nothing had substantially changed in the proposal since the last time it was brought, which was in the last 3 years. And that was one of the reasons that council urged it, staff urged that it not be reconsidered this time around. That and the additional burden of the extensive analysis this would require, that may or may not be necessary.
We were trying to focus on complying with the requirements to comply with the growth management update. That's our #1 focus. There is a hard deadline there, and we want to stay on track to make sure that we stay in compliance.
Okay, thank you. So Councilman Robinson, did you have any, you were kind of involved in that?
A little follow-up
Sure, go ahead.
on that. Okay, first one is about 3 years ago, that was, I don't remember ever voting on this, but I think that was before I joined the council. When this was up before, did it go through the whole process and have a vote on the council?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, and so it was rejected by the council at that
Yes.
point? And now, what we've got here, if we put this on the docket, then unlike Novos, which paid a fee and hired a consultant to prepare their presentation and put all the arguments for why they should be on the docket, and then presumably we'll be paying to get this approved, we'll be doing all this at city expense.
Correct.
Without collecting any fee from the proponents.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Block.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recall when this came up a few years ago, and I understand the passion behind this proposal and the desire to protect the lake that the lake owners live on. But in this position, as a council member, I have to take the perspective of everybody into account, and that includes the minority interests, people who live on the lake that don't share the view that downzoning is the best solution to their issues. So I voted accordingly, and we went and disapproved it. At the time, I'm going to repeat this again, I pointed out that there's a private solution to this issue that the homeowners can pursue that has nothing to do with the city, and that is that they can assign their development rights to their property. So basically what occurs is that a nonprofit agency like Cascade Land Conservancy or something like that, you assign your development rights to your property. That means that that's attached to the title, and somebody can't come in and subdivide your property or lower the lot size. So it's a private sector solution that takes care of the issues that you want to address, and it doesn't involve the city. This is something you can do on your own. I've talked about this in the past. It's done on a regular basis. In fact, it was just done recently with the White River Forest, where Cascade Land Conservancy purchased the development rights to that property. So this is something that's common. It's done often in the private sector. It achieves what you want, and it doesn't involve the city, and allows you to move forward without having to trample on the rights of the minority landowners. So, you know, there's a solution to your issues that you can solve them, and it doesn't have to involve the city, and I strongly encourage you to look into this matter.
Councilmember Ecker.
The last sentence on that page that you have on the screen is critical to the whole discussion here. You know, so you're nodding your head yes. There has been.
I'm sorry. I was nodding to turn the screen on.
There does exist a change in the circumstances that justify the need for the amendment. In 2010, the city attempted to calculate the current density incorrectly and therefore ruled against their proposal, which they later changed that definition of how they calculate the density, which would have been then in the proponent's favor had it been done that way initially. There was also a incorrect definition of how the growth management numbers would be met. And so the proponent at the time in 2010 showed that there would have been an impact of 40 houses potentially affected, but would not have affected the growth management numbers because there was still an excess of numbers. A few months later, when the group health submitted their amendment to remove some houses for their expansion, the city decided or was able to show that there was no impact because there were still hundreds of houses that were left. So we have the definition of density was done incorrectly or changed afterwards. The definition of how to determine growth management numbers was done differently. There was contentions about how to measure wetlands, which was not necessarily done correctly. There was also a contention about how to measure significance, and the Planning Commission had a long discussion, and they took that word out of the planning comprehensive plan. We have also noticed that there's been a marked decrease in the ability of the city's facilities, which in 2010 said were adequate, the stormwater facilities were adequate, which is not the case. So I believe in addition to that, there were the development of 2 additional documents, both the drainage master plan, which supports the need to change the land use on this area, and there was the best available science, which also supports the need to maintain low density in order to protect water quality. So the proponents felt that there was sufficient changes between the last time it was presented and this time to make it a valid request.
Councilmember Lawson.
I just want to follow up on both of the last 2 comments. There are other ways too that landowners can create private protection if their concern is development and re-subdivision of property, restrictive covenants and various things that can be done. What we're looking at today is whether we're going to amend the work, basically amend the docket to add this on and put it into consideration. And I'm of 2 minds. On one side, I'm thinking, let's just put it on there and not hear this anymore. Let's do a public hearing. There's no way I could vote for or against the proposed change without the public hearing process. On the other hand, I'm thinking that we've got a group of some of the wealthiest residents in the city who aren't willing to pay the fee and do the work to do a proper docket request and put it on. and that bugs me more than a little bit. So I just wanted to say that.
Councilmember McGill.
I've been on this council when this has come to us in the last 3 years. Justine Edgar is the one that's bringing this forward. I think there is no change in circumstances that would change the recommendation that we have received from the Planning Commission 3 times. And I agree with Councilmember Robeson that this puts the burden on the city to put together the paperwork, the arguments, the analysis. I think that we have done our civic duty by considering it carefully, but we have come to the conclusion 3 times that there is no change in circumstances that justifies the need for the amendment. I think it's a concern to the Lake Burien residents, but that it's not a concern of the comp plan amendment process.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, can we go ahead and register our votes on Deputy Mayor Kukoviac's motion? Motion fails 5-2. Can we go ahead now and get the motion for the comprehensive plan amendment docket as a whole?
I move approval of resolution number 342, establishing the 2013 comprehensive plan docket.
Second.
Okay, any discussion of this motion to approve the docket? Councilmember Edgar.
Thank you. I move to amend the motion by appending the following words to item number 5 on Exhibit A, page 261 of the council packet. The current reading, like it says, examine critical area designations and ensure they are consistently applied throughout the city. I would like to propose the following words to be amended. In the text and the maps of the comprehensive plan and documents related to the comprehensive plan. So the whole item would read.
Can I just interrupt you? What page are you reading from again in the packet? So we can.
Page 261.
261, okay, thank you.
What item number?
Number 5.
Number 5. So the motion is to have that wording read, number 5, examine critical area designations and ensure they are consistently applied throughout the city in the text and maps of the comprehensive plan and documents related to the comprehensive plan.
And I second that amendment.
Okay, can you read the additional language again? I was trying to write it down. Remember.
In the text and maps of the comprehensive plan and documents related to the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on Councilmember Edgar's motion? Councilmember Block.
I have a question. What would be the implications of Councilmember Edgar's language change?
Yeah, please go ahead. Or did you have the question directed towards anyone?
I'm asking staff.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just reading the language there. Well, the implications here is, I think it's going back to some of the same issues we've been discussing and the inconsistencies. So I think one of the arguments that we heard is that it potentially could look at some of the descriptions in the comprehensive plan and look at the land use designations. I mean, that's the potential that this docket item has.
Is this an item that Councilor Martin?
Do we know for a fact what this one is?
Well, we don't really know until we study it, but
Do you think order of magnitude is this a big deal or a little deal or a medium deal?
could be a big deal.
And is this something that the planning commission will consider this year or has considered in the past?
They have not considered it, I don't believe, in the past.
Okay. Okay, Councilman Ross.
No, I have a question for Councilmember Edgar. In your view, does that actually materially change into this says now examine critical area designation, ensure they consistently applied throughout the city? So I'm not sure what your change actually adds to that.
The intent is to add a little more weight to it. I think it's incumbent on the city to protect all of its critical areas in alignment with the city's environmental impact statement. It has the best available science document and the Puget Sound Regional Council's environmental framework for their Vision 2040. I think there's a need to make sure those are all related and consistent.
So, can I ask Councilmember Baker, is there a reason why, did you consider bringing this before the planning commission for them to consider adding this to the docket?
Because now I thought it was the time.
Okay, so, okay, thank you. Councilmember Block.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know enough about the proposed amendment to vote at this time, but, you know, I think it merits consideration. And I definitely want to hear back from staff, you know, the full implications of that. As Mr. Johansson said, he needs to research this some more. So I'd like to know what the implications are. So I think the appropriate thing to do now is to postpone to a date certain, which would be our next meeting, rather than vote this up or down until we hear back from staff on this issue, and then revisit this at our next meeting. So that's my proposal.
David, could you give us a better sense of what you think this means? I mean, I'm judging from your body language here that this looks like a big deal to you.
Yeah, my main concern is that we devote as much resource that we have as possible to complying with the growth management updates. And that's one of my biggest concerns. Potentially involved in that, if we have sufficient resources, we may be able to look at some of these other environmental documents, but I just don't want to get sidetracked on our main objective, which is to just keep in compliance with the Growth Management Act. And
and I'm not trying to leave here, I'd really like to get this done tonight if it's at all possible.
Yeah.
So we're not sure of the consequence. It could be major, it could be time consuming.
I'm just concerned with the resources is the only thing.
Yeah, I understand. And the other thing is this not the kind of the linchpin around the issue of the Lake Burien down zone?
Exactly.
So is that what we're really talking about here?
That's what we're talking about.
So I
Like I
think
said, all we're talking about, consistency across the whole city to make sure that they're consistently protecting.
in the spirit of just trying to get to it here, what I'm hearing from David is that this may be a significant work plan item, which is fine, we can add if council wishes. But I'm also hearing that this is somewhat intended to reopen the whole discussion around the Lake Burien down zone. So I want to be frank about this so we can kind of move along here. And if that's mistaken, I'm sorry, I'm open to any clarification.
I appreciate the input. Councilmember, do you want to respond to that?
No, this focused on critical areas around the whole city, whether it's wherever it exists, and that there's consistency between all the documents that the city has in place. And I'm just not convinced that that's happening.
And the other thing I'd like to point out to council, and David educated me on this point, on page 26, all those little L's and M's and H's, that's low, medium, and high. What David and the planning staff hope to do, intend to do this time around, is address all of the H's. So we're talking 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 24, and 26, 26 being the new one. The M's, the medium, the areas of medium focus are not required by the Growth Management Act to address this year. It's very likely that with the staff we have, we're going to be addressing the high priority items, unless council tells us to the contrary.
Okay, so So we got a motion from Councilmember Edgar. We had a suggestion from Councilmember Block to kind of wait on that. Councilmember, will you consider Councilmember Block's proposal a friendly amendment to yours to wait on that, or do you want to move forward with yours?
Sure, and it's also a medium, so that it's not necessarily going to be high on the priority list at this point in time.
Okay.
Just to clarify, in my discussion earlier today with David, our discussion was that he was intending to address the high priority items, not the medium priority or low priority items. And so, in the spirit of not raising expectations here, I wouldn't want to have had this discussion and then have us not address it and then have raised the expectation we were going to.
No expectations considered. It is a medium, so I assume it'll be handled like all the other mediums.
Okay. Councilmember Park.
Thank you. I too saw the addition to the language in item 5 as a backdoor way to address the Lake Burien issue, and it has been before this council. This whole 4-year term that I have sat here, the Planning Commission has dealt with it, the City Council has dealt with it, and I feel adding it here not only is a backdoor way of bringing the issue forward again, but it also discredits the Planning Commission that has served us so well, and it discredits the staff, who I believe wholeheartedly work to have their regulations and what have you in all of the documents be consistent throughout the city. They do look at the whole city, and the constant attention to Lake Burien, especially now on the taxpayer dollar, when we have done it repeatedly, I think that's a disservice to the whole city. And so I will not be in favor of adding that language. I'm satisfied with it being an M. I had expected us to work through the H's, which also includes number 28. And I think that having been a planning commission, I think that is a very full docket. And I would like to vote, the last thing is I would like to vote on this tonight because I will not be here on the 15th. I am having knee surgery and I expect to be excused.
Councilmember McGill.
I agree with Councilmember Clark. I would like to vote on it tonight. I am disturbed because each time the Lake Burien group brings this before us, they try any approach they can to convince the City Council it's not an issue directly brought forward by the Lake Burien group. So I would like to vote on this tonight and not spend another 15 months doing the comp plan amendment process. I hope we can move through it expeditiously, do the high priority items, and I hope this council will be more efficient than we were with the 2012 comp plan amendments.
Councilmember Robinson.
Was there a second on the motion for the amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to call for the question on the motion.
Okay. Question has been called. Can we go ahead and register our votes on Councilmember Edgar's motion?
Mayor, can we have the motion is the language on item 5, right? It's the added language.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember. Okay, so Councilmember Edgar's motion fails 6-1. Yeah, Deputy Mayor Jacoby, I can vote in favor of the motion.
It was reverse logic, on the way that was stated.
So,
I'm sorry?
you want to change your vote?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to vote for. I'm voting what they have it. Yes.
Yes, so we're voting on your motion. So,
Yes.
okay, so you want to change? Okay, so let's go ahead.
I just pushed the wrong button.
Yeah.
So it should be 5-2.
Yes.
Councilmember.
So, okay, so Councilmember Edgar has changed his vote. So it's the motion fails 5-2. So now let's go ahead and consider the docket the original motion from Deputy Mayor Kukoviac for the docket itself. Any further discussion of that? Seeing none, can we go ahead and register our votes on the docket? Looks like.
You were a little fast, I was still typing.
Sure.
Votes.
Just want to get out of here.
So I need votes from the mayor, Councilmember Clark, and Councilmember Edgar. Can we start the voting over, please?
Okay, so, how do I?
Just a second, I'm trying to clear it. Okay, if you would please vote.
Okay, the docket is approved 5-2, which is Councilor Edgar and Deputy Mayor Kukoviac voted against. So with that, the last item on our business agenda this evening is city business. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the late hour, I just wanted to point out one thing. So we will be bringing the shoreline master plan to you for your first look at it at your April 22nd study session. We've done some pre-work, obviously, attended to that, but you can see the schedule there on page 282. And we have this pretty well mapped out, I think.
No, we've worked both with ecology and the shoreline working group / Mr. Noakes on preparing this schedule. So all parties, at least involved, are comfortable.
And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions, Council.
Okay, any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Kukoviac.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. Looking for when we will be getting in front of us the what's happening with signage and for businesses in the city.
And I can tell you, as soon as we get through the SNP, it's our intent in the first part of the fall, David, to bring the signage issue to council as we've discussed.
Okay.
So the idea was 2012 comp plan amendments, get the docket 2013, work through the SNP, and then do the signage.
Thank you. And then I think that when I met with you, you sent a draft ILA interlocal agreement out to council members. I was wondering if we could get a copy of that draft in the packet.
We can, it's a draft.
Yes.
It's still at a very low level among many cities being worked on as a draft, but we'd be glad to include that.
Thank you.
Councilmember McGill.
It's been very interesting to read the Seattle Times concerning the Whidbey Island slide and the amount of terrain that was displaced downhill into Puget Sound. As one looks at the photos and realizes that this large development perched on the cliff fell away, and these folks are dealing with the fact that many of them are not insured. I just want to note for the record that several communities are looking at the geology of this, primarily Bainbridge Island, asking, is the geology there the same as Whidbey Island? We have very similar geology here. A slide will happen. It's just a matter of when. The geology says that the sand layer, the till layer, and the underlying clay layer will cause water to pool in these areas that are substantially developed and cause a slide. So I just note for the record that we have no control over it. It's something that we in Burien have to be aware of and realize that the human intervention into these surface areas that get paved or lawn which has no capacity to remove the water is a serious concern, and I think we better just individually think about our pieces of property and are we vulnerable or not. And the idea that insurance will rebuild a house is not probably in the realm of reality. So just, if you've read those articles, look at the amount of damage to this community. It's just absolutely substantial. Thank you.
Councilmember Block.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember McGilton, for that. I think it's important, in light of what happened on Whidbey Island, that everybody was in a critical area to look at their insurance policy and make sure that they are covered in the event of something unfortunate like what happened there. And I think that we should take the extra step of looking at homeowners in our critical area and at least send them a letter suggesting that they review their insurance policy. We have a duty to make sure that our citizens are protected. But as Councilmember McGilton said, the home in all likelihood will not be rebuilt if there's an event such as that. But there is an opportunity at least to recover a person's financial loss so they can move on. That's if they have insurance. If they don't have insurance, then it's unfortunate, but that's a choice that a person makes.
And the city won't bail them out.
No, neither will the federal government or the state government. No, you're on your own. So thank you for adding that. Mr. Byrne, we had several homeowners from Lake Burien that made a presentation concerning stormwater, and they expressed concerns that our stormwater facilities weren't adequate enough to handle the amount of stormwater, and that there wasn't an adequate number of oil separators. Can you contact Public Works and find out if they're aware of that issue and if they're addressing that?
Yes.
Thank you. Also, I want to call your attention to item B. I think you misunderstood my request. I requested what it would take to refinance this debt. Instead, we get a reiteration of what was said in August. I want to point out again that the undergrounding debt, $11.5 million, as Ms. Krause pointed out at the time and is on here, is the average interest rate is 5.1%. I want to point out that if we were to take advantage of the present yields on bonds right now, municipal bonds, this is according to Bloomberg, one-year bonds are 0.24%, two-year bonds are 0.35%, five-year bonds are 0.88%, and 10-year bonds are 1.96%. All of these yields are below 2%. It has potential to save the taxpayers over $300,000 a year if we refinance, and also an opportunity to cut the timeline of this debt from the 18 years that's left to 10 years. So I think that it would behoove us to at least explore this a little bit further and contact City Light and told them that we have an interest in issuing bonds to refinance this debt.
Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. On the lighter note, I went to the public meeting for novels last week, and I was hoping perhaps we could get them to come, get David to come and make a.
They're coming either the 15th or the 22nd.
Oh, cool. Could we make it please on the 22nd? I won't be here on the 15th.
You may not be here on the 22nd.
With all of the drugs I will have one of my kids drive me and I will be here.
I will drive you.
Okay.
Are they good drugs?
They are very good drugs, but
That's
it's
not
like,
good.
but I can still think, and I can still listen, and I can still marvel at what they're planning on doing on their site, and it's just extraordinary what's in the future for Navos and their future plans. Then I have one question. When is our audit? Are we starting that audit? Or, and the reason I'm asking is I think it's good for council members to go to the exit interview and hear the auditors. I've been to several, and I just would like a timeline so we know, new council members know when they can go to that.
It'll be the end of summer, fall.
Okay, seeing no further comments, then we'll move on to council reports. For the first council report, I'd like to state that we have our annual Arbor Day proclamation and planting. And the planting this year will be at Shorewood Park on April 10th, where we'll take time to recognize a longtime park volunteer who recently passed away, Fred Henze, who was active with the Shorewood on Sound and very involved with many park projects there at Shorewood Park. With that, Councilmember McGilton.
I was at the Regional Transit Committee, which is a King County Metro Citizen Advisory Committee, and I want to alert everybody that Metro just announced a potential bus service cut of 17% in June of 2014. The King County Council voted a motor vehicle tax a year ago. It will run out in June of 2014. The service cuts are because they are based entirely on a revenue source which is generated from sales tax. It used to be that there was an MV tax that we all paid on our cars, and that went away due to Tim Eyman. What will be the outcome of this if we don't get relief from the legislature or a way of increasing either the motor vehicle or the gas tax? 75 routes will be eliminated in the metro system in June of 2014. There will be an impact on 66% of all routes in King County. The ridership would increase if Metro could buy more buses and provide more operational support, which is drivers. That's one of the biggest pieces of their budget. So, folks, I just want you to be aware of this. Look on the Metro King County website to see the service routes that will be eliminated. Burien will be affected. When we want cars off the road and riding the bus, which makes it much more efficient, that if we don't look at a way to fund Metro, we're going to lose 17% of our bus service. Thank you.
Councilmember Ross.
Councilmember McGilton and I took a tour this morning up at Greenbridge and Seola Gardens, and quite the project up there. I met with Steve Norman, the director of the Housing Authority, and saw the houses that they're building for sale up there. They're finishing out the last of the rental properties, and they're getting underway on homes to sell for homeowners to move into, which there's
market rate homeowners.
Right, which by the time they're done will add 300 single-family homes up in that area.
Which all goes on the tax rolls.
Which all goes on the tax rolls. And plus the commercial development that's going in along 8th. They've got a couple of community centers up there which make space available for community groups to use. They have a computer lab, which you didn't get to see, which is actually open for the public. And they would be happy to host any other council people who would like to get the tour. It's very informative, and they showed us how they're, I've known Mr. Norman for many years, and he knows that I've been concerned for many years about King County's past policies of economic segregation, which have forced low-income families into the White Center area in particular, and certain pockets of South King County, and he showed us their efforts to reverse that, using Section 8 vouchers to move people into areas on the east side and the north end. So I was pleased with the tour, and I would urge other members of the council to take it and take a look at what's going on. But it's a large project, more single-family homes being built up there than will probably be built in the entire rest of this area for many years.
And I think the thing that I was impressed with more than anything else is the educational facilities that are being partnered between the Highline School District, King County Housing Authority, as well as federal money. The Educare Center that does Head Start is amazing up there. And just the mix of community, the diversity that's offered, the opportunity for lots of folks to interact in various ways with each other is going to make this an extremely strong community. I think there's something like 800 housing units up there between Greenbridge and Ciolo Gardens.
Right, and they're working on a strong mix of seniors, families, lower income rentals, middle and upper income rentals, and the single owner occupied single family homes.
And this is all low impact development approved. It's amazing to look at how they put in their streets and their housing and realize that they're being very, very aggressive with low impact development.
Thank you. Just want to remind everyone about Clean Sweep. It's Saturday, April 20th, from 8 to noon, ending with lunch at the fire station. And I believe the fire station is 8th and 150th. So looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Great, seeing no further comments, can we get a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? We are adjourned.